Chapter 6: The Enduring Appeal of Magical Growth Models. Defeatist narratives about U.S. long-term growth prospects are misguided, we argued in the last chapter, as even mature economies can re-accelerate under the right conditions. We return to such credible prospects in chapters 7 and 8. But there is also a relative version of defeatism, the idea that the U.S. economy is falling behind those with a superior growth model. In reality, as we shall learn, no economy escapes the gravity of growth. Advantageous growth differentials reliably shrink as emerging economies approach the frontier. But the fear, and envy, of supposedly superior growth models is curiously enduring. Executives care about relative growth across economies for the same reason they are interested in U.S. trend growth. It influences global capital allocation, strategies for markets and products, production locations, and much more. But popular discourse about competing growth models complicates a clear view of long-run growth dynamics. Too often, declinist narratives of fear, of falling behind, and of envy, of faster, more dynamic growth abroad, take the place of sober analysis of growth drivers. We should not conflate catch-up growth and mature growth. Catching up allows for high growth, as already proven technologies and business processes are adopted at speed, a process that usually involves big increases to the capital stock. But this growth model is not sustainable as the technological frontier is approached and the capital stock built out. Eventually, the hard work of innovation is required. This is why no economy escapes the gravity of growth. Why do narratives of magical growth models stubbornly persist? We explore this question with 3 case studies from the last 100 years: the Soviet Union, Japan, and more recently, China, the last with unique characteristics. It is hard not to be impressed by fast-growing economies that were pulling hundreds of millions out of poverty, building impressive new cities and infrastructure, and shifting the geographic center of the global economy. But fast growth and sustainable growth are not the same. Aggregate growth and per capita growth are not the same. And the skill set for pushing growth at the frontier on a per capita basis versus pushing growth off the floor or even in the middle of the income distribution are different. None of this suggests that the membership of high-income economies will remain static, nor does it imply that those at the frontier should never be anxious about competition. But it does demonstrate that magical growth models are not so magical after all. Why nobody escapes the gravity of growth. Recall from Chapter 5 the analytical building blocks that explain slowing trend growth in the United States. Labor, capital, and productivity are subject to the gravity of growth, though we argued that each factor has the potential for reacceleration, causing trend growth to rise periodically. What we want to argue now is that the same gravity of growth is internationally present. It is not a U.S.-specific handicap. We can see this empirically in the experiences of Japan, South Korea, and China. See Figure 6.1. There isn't enough data to show this for the Soviet Union, one of 3 case studies to follow. We use Korea in this figure to broaden the empirical evidence. All have been extraordinarily successful with catch-up growth, moving their economies toward the frontier, as seen in the rightward drift of per capita GDP. And yet, as incomes grow, we see how labor, capital, and productivity growth become harder.